Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining me today. I'm Kathie, and I'll be your guest artist for today. I use she, hers, and hers pronoun. So today we'll be talking about some really cool music techniques that I'm excited to share with you. So we'll be talking about improvisation, and we'll be talking about something called found sounds. So normally I'm a musician, and I play percussion. So if you're familiar with percussion, any percussion instruments are basically any sort of instruments that you can hit and strike with either your hand, a mallet, or even a stick. So some of you might be familiar with percussion instruments such as the xylophone, drums, drum set, maracas, triangle, and tambourine. But sometimes as a percussionist, I'm also asked to play some really weird and bizarre things. So those weird instruments are called found sounds. So what found sounds are, they essentially are instruments that you find. So they're just like random objects that you find, and then you improvise sounds on it. So an example is a piece of paper. So if you find a piece of paper, and sometimes we're asked to play this as an instrument. And so improvisation is making up something on the spot. So some of you might be familiar with improvising if you've played in a jazz band before. In jazz band, you're often given the form and a scale or a key to play, and then you make up a melody right on the spot. So that's what improvisation is, essentially making up something on the spot. So today, we'll learn how to discover lots of fun sounds from things like paper, silverware, water bottles, dried beans and rice, coins, and so on. And we'll improvise on all these instruments. And at the end, there'll be an opportunity for you to play an improvised piece. So before we begin, let's do a mindful moment to really just relax ourselves and kind of get ready to improvise. So I want you all to take a minute and close your eyes and take a few deep breaths. So it's really important when you're improvising to really be present and really be able to connect with yourself and do everything that you want to show during that time, because improvisation really gives you the opportunity to show how you're feeling today, show how your day went. So I want you to ask yourself right now, how are you feeling right now? Are you feeling awesome, tired? And then I want you to reflect on your day. How has your day been going today? Good, bad? What didn't go as well today or as planned? So during this class, I want you to remember that there are no such thing as wrong answers. This is a place for you to explore and be super creative. You could do anything, you could try lots of different things, and there will be no judgment. There's no such thing as a wrong sound, and that's the beauty of found sounds and improvisation. So really be creative and really try to think outside the box during class today. So you can open your eyes now and let's begin. So first we'll collect all our materials. So the first thing you should have is a paper and pencil. It doesn't have to be a pencil, it could just be some sort of writing utensil. So what you're going to do with this paper and pencil is that you're going to use it to take notes during the class. So you don't put this too far away, but put this somewhere where you can reach and close by. Next, we're going to gather our found sounds. So I have asked you to bring 5 different found sounds with you today. So the first is paper. And then the second is some sort of silverware. So here's some examples. You should also have some water bottles or just one water bottle. If you don't have exactly what I have, it's totally okay. We'll go through and talk about how different materials can make different sounds throughout class. And you should also have some dried beans and dried rice. Mine are just in jars. And lastly, you should have some coins, and any coins are good. Again, if you don't have exactly what I have, that is totally okay. And we'll go over how to discover fun sounds throughout the class. All right, so You should have those 5 items. And another thing you should make sure you have is a hard surface. It could be a table, coffee table, floor, just something that is hard that you can use to make sure you can write on and place your materials on, so it'll be easy to access and use. All right, before we officially get started, I just want to make a quick note about safety. So I want you to be super creative and super fun during this time, but I do also want you to be safe. So please don't throw anything across the room, don't hurt yourself or hurt anyone around you, a pet, break anything. So use your best judgment throughout this class, and safety is number 1, but also be creative. All right, so the first instrument we're going to use is paper. So why don't you pull out your paper in front of you. So here are my examples of paper. I have one piece of paper that is super crumpled. I have a magazine. I have scratch paper, and then this gift wrap paper. You might have newspapers or binder paper. All paper is acceptable and good to use. So what sounds can you make with paper? So an easy one that you might be familiar with is crumpling it like this. Do you hear that super crunchy sound? Or you can even tear paper like this. What else can you do? You could do, if you have a super crumply paper, you can shake it. You can squeeze it. You can rub paper against the table. So what else can you make? I'm going to give you some time right now to improvise with your paper, and I'll do it with you. If you run out of ideas of how to make sounds with your paper, feel free to look at me for examples and copy what I do. Also, if you feel like you need more time to improvise on your paper after we're done with this time, feel free to pause the video so that you can spend more time improvising and discovering sounds. All right, so let's test out some sounds on paper. All right, I hope you found some super cool sounds on paper. So something about paper that's really interesting is that as you crumple paper or rip paper, it starts to change its shape. You'll probably have noticed. So this paper became really soft, and it doesn't make any more sounds when you crumple it, or not many loud sounds. So the really cool thing about found sounds is that sometimes you have to adapt to it and change with it. So once this doesn't make much more sounds anymore, you might have noticed that I started ripping the paper instead. So as you explore through your found sounds today, remember to adapt to the instrument, because these aren't like traditional instruments like the violin or the piano. They will act super differently, and based on what materials you have, they'll also do different things. So that was paper. Now I want you to take your piece of paper and pen that you have on the side and just write down what your favorite sound from the paper was. So for example, I'll put paper, my favorite sound was ripping the paper, and I'll write that down. So why don't you take a moment to do that right now. All right, so let's put our paper aside, and we'll try our next instrument, which will be silverware. So here are some silverware examples. So you might have different types of silverware that are made out of different materials. So you might have wooden silverware, chopsticks. You might have plastic silverware. You might have metal silverware, or even ceramic silverware. all are great, and you could make really interesting sounds with all of them. So with all these silverware items, what sounds can you make? A really easy one is if you have some metal ones, you can hit the table gently, not too crazy, to like drumsticks. Or you can hit them together. If you have something like chopsticks, you can roll them on the table. You can pick them up and play them like this. And some super cool ones. If you have a plastic fork, you can pluck these little pointy parts. See if you can hear this. If you have some plastic knives and they have these little bumpy ridges on them, you could rub them against each other. So there's lots of different sounds you can make with the different types of instruments, silverware you have. So again, let's take a moment to improvise and explore these instruments. And I'll show you some examples while you are exploring. If you have different materials of silverware, you could also try them with each other. Great. So that is silverware. Make sure you write down what your favorite sound was that you discovered on silverware, and you could go ahead and put your silverware items aside. So the next item you can grab out are water bottles. So here are some water bottle examples that I have. So some of you might have this kind of plastic water bottle. If you have water in it, it's totally cool. If you don't have any, that's totally fine. If it's half full, that's also totally fine. You might have Hydro Flask or a plastic reusable bottle like this, or you might have a glass one or ceramic one. Again, these different materials that are made from different things will allow you to make different sounds. So what sounds can you make with water bottles? So if you have one of these, you can crumple it up like this. And if your bottle is empty, it'll make a completely different sound. It'll probably be crunchier. If you have water in any of your bottles, you can shake it for that water sloshing sound. If you have a Hydro Flask, I bet you've done this before. You can hit it, and it makes this really pretty ringing sound. You could even roll it on the table if you want. If you have one of these plastic bottles, you can flick it. So there's lots of different cool sounds that you can make with water bottles. So let's take a minute to explore, and I'll do this with you. And if you run out of ideas, feel free to take a look at mine and copy what I'm doing and test that out. Something cool you could do is grab one of your silverware items from earlier and use that to hit the water bottle. And that's kind of like drums, right? If any of you are drummers or percussionists, that might be really familiar for you. All right, so write down what your favorite water bottle sound that you discovered was, and then go ahead and set your water bottles aside, and we'll listen to the next sound. So the next item you'll bring out are the dried beans and or dried rice, or both if you have both. So mine are in these jars. So my rice right here is in a glass jar, and my dried beans are in this plastic container. Or if you do, you might have these in a bowl, or you might have these on the table just loosely. So different sized beans and rice will make different sounds. So what sounds can you make with these? So an easy one. If you have your rice or beans in a jar, you can shake it like a shaker. This is rice. And if you have like beans in a plastic container, it might be a little louder. So check this out. You can rotate it. Another fun one you can do, you can also drop these rice and beans on the floor to make kind of this like rain-like sound. Yeah, so that kind of reminds me of rain. And something else we can try is taking some rice, or let's take some beans this time, and putting them in an empty water bottle that you had from earlier. So I'm going to use my Hydro Flask, for example. Put some of these dried beans in here. I bet it'll sound a lot like a shaker. So let's see what this does. Cool. So why don't we take a minute and explore your dried beans and dried rice. You might have different versions of these, or they might be in different containers. So do whatever works for you, and let's see what sounds we can make. Let's try dropping some beans. This might also remind you of rattlesnakes or something like that. All right, great. So please write down your favorite sound that you've discovered from your dried beans or rice, and you can set those aside. All right. So the last object that we'll use today are coins. So you might have different kinds of coins. I have here a quarter, nickel, some pennies, and a dime. You might have some international coins or even some fake coins like these. All are good. Again, different sizes will make different sounds for that you discover. So what are some sounds you can make with these coins? So an easy one that I'm sure you've all done before is put these coins in your hand, cover them, and shake them. Ooh. That's another cool sound where it falls out and falls on the table. But let's go back to shaking real quick. What else can you do? If you have a quarter, you might have noticed that it has these little bumpy ridges on the side. So you could take another coin and scrape against it for a sound like this. Or you could do something fun like this where you rotate or spin the coin and let it fall slowly, and then stop it. And then you can even rub the coin on the table for some cool sounds. All right, let's take a moment and explore the coins that we have. Cool. I hope you found some cool sounds with the coins. Make sure you write down what your favorite sound was. Okay, so now we've explored all 5 of our different instruments. So what we're going to do is we're going to take back bring back our different instruments, and what we're going to do is we're going to label our sounds. So let's bring back our instruments. You should have your coins, your silverware or utensils, water bottles, dried beans or rice, and paper. So what I want you to do is look back at the sheet of paper that you used to take notes and just reflect on which of your sounds were your favorite. So what I want you to do is order your sounds from your favorite to least favorite. So for example, if you have Post-it notes, this might be helpful. If not, it's okay. So for example, my number 1 favorite sound is utensils. And then my number 2 favorite sound is paper. And then 3, 4, 5. So go ahead and take a moment to do that. All right, so you should have your 5 sounds labeled. Again, number 1 is your most favorite to 5 your least favorite. So what we're going to do now is we're going to play an improvised piece. So how this is going to work is I have these cards here. They're labeled 1, 2, 3, and they go all the way up to 5. So I'm going to show you a card, and what you're going to do, that card is going to signal which instrument you're supposed to play. So when I put down, say for example, I put down card 1, that means for me, I will be improvising on my utensils. So yours, number 1, might not be utensils. It might be a different instrument. So that's the instrument you'll improvise on. Let me show you a short example. So I put down number 2. So that means I improvise on paper. And then I change it to 3. So I put my paper back and I improvise on the water bottle. So on and so forth. There will also be a time where I put down something like 2 cards. So what you could do when there's 2 cards, so right now I have 2 and 3 out, is you could choose one or the other. So I could either play just my number 2 instrument or just my number 3 instrument. Or I can combine the 2. So for me, I have my paper as 2 and water bottle as 3. So I could take the paper and try to come up with a cool sound combining the 2. So something like this. Cool. So let's play our piece. So as we're playing the piece and I'm showing you the card, just make sure you check back with the screen every now and then so that you don't miss any of the card changes that I do. To end the piece, I'll show this sign. It says stop. This means that the piece is over and we've completed our piece. So let's get ready. So give yourself some room. All right. So let's begin. So the first card I have is 2. So improvise on your number 2 instrument for a bit. See if you could find any new sounds that you didn't find from earlier. All right, next we're going to change to our number 3 instrument. And then let's mix it up and add our number 4 instrument. So again, you could either choose just your number 3 instrument, just your number 4 instrument, or combine those 2 instruments. See, if you haven't tried yet, try combining the two instruments and see what other interesting sounds you could come up with by combining two different instruments together. All right, let's switch to our number 1 instrument. And let's add our number 5 instrument. Again, you can either choose one or the other, or you can combine the two. I highly recommend trying combining the two because you'll probably come up with some really interesting sounds that you haven't done yet. All right, and let's finish the piece. All right, great job improvising today. I hope you had lots of fun learning about what improvising is. Again, improvising is coming up with something right on the spot. So like what you did today, where you came up with lots of different sounds on the spot. And I hope you had fun playing found sounds. So again, found sounds are found objects that you find and you make an instrument out of it. And found sounds are all around you. So it's not just the instruments that we looked at today. It could be something like a pen that you have and you can make these clicky sounds with it. Or it can be a plastic bag that you can crumple. Or if you go outside and you find some dry leaves, you can also pick that up and crunch them together. So found sounds really are everywhere, and you can really make lots of different found sounds with lots of different things around you. So today after class, I encourage you to go out and find 5 more found sounds that you really love and is really interesting to you. See what different sounds you can make from the instrument. See if you can combine anything and come up with a brand new sound, or just try anything that you see in your house. So I hope you had fun today. Thank you for joining me, and I'll see you next time. Bye.